WBTW News 13 presents the Bojangles Southern 500. Coverage of the Bojangles Southern 500 sponsored by Brown's RV Superstore, Yamaha of Lumberton, Advanced Dental Center of Florence, Mike Rickenbaugh Ford Lincoln, and Conway Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for watching News 13 coverage of the Bojangles Southern 500.
Drivers, start your engines!
Welcome into the Bojangles Southern 500 preview show. I'm Conan Gasquet alongside Jillian Morris. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll have a full preview for you of tonight's race, but we're also going to take a look at some really special paint schemes.
Throwback paint scheme is a new thing at Darlington, just started last year, but it's something that's been a huge hit. Drivers and fans get really excited about these throwback paint schemes.
And speaking of things that fans get excited about, we're in the Darlington Raceway Stock Car Museum right now. Check out this car right here, one of the many cars here in the museum. This was driven by Richard Petty in 1967.
The 67 Plymouth. Take a look at this car. It's got the Petty blue, good-looking car. Petty drove this when he won his second Grand National Championship. He had a very historic season in 1967, won 10 races in a row at one point.
And as you can see, there's a lot of other famous cars from Darlington and various other points in NASCAR. A lot of fans in here getting ready for the race. Checking out some of these cars, it's a very special place to be. And it's a really cool place because, you know, it kind of fits in with the theme that we have here of all the throwback campaigns. That's one thing that they started last year, so that was kind of the beginning of a new era at Darlington Raceway. This year's another new era.
A new era because there's a new president, Kerry Tharp, new president of Darlington Raceway, new here, but not new to the state of South Carolina. He's been a resident here for 31 years, so he's excited to be the president at Darlington. I talked to him earlier in the week about what it's been like so far since he got here and what his future plans are for the track.
Looking good, baby! Looking real good!
This is what Kerry Tharp's life looks like on a daily basis. Being president of a NASCAR track is something he's passionate about, but it definitely took some getting used to.
I had no intentions of ever coming to NASCAR. When I was growing up, I really didn't even follow NASCAR, to be honest with you.
Tharp worked for 20 years in college athletics, but in 2005 he got a job offer from NASCAR, then went down to Daytona for Speed Week.
I really didn't know what I saw, but as I told my wife when I got home that night, she said, "Well, what did you think?" I said, "Honey, I don't know what I saw, but it was cool."
That enthusiasm soon grew to a passion. 11 years later, he's still at NASCAR, but now in a new role as president of Darlington.
And it also gives me great resolve to know that the racetrack here at Darlington means so much to the people in the PD area and the state of South Carolina.
Now he's getting ready for his first Southern 500. He's only had since July to prepare, but he feels ready and has big plans to do even more with the race in the future.
I'd love to be able to bring back as many former drivers as we could. I'm talking about drivers that participated in the sport, that put their heart and soul into the sport, and maybe haven't felt like that they have had an opportunity to come back to an event.
Appreciate what you all are doing. It's amazing.
How he achieves this goal or any others, it's too soon to tell. But Tharp is confident his passion will help him leave a lasting legacy at Darlington.
I would just like to be able to, people to say that, you know, there's one guy there that gave it his all and maybe did some things that people hadn't done before and helped grow the track to even greater heights.
You heard Kerry talk about how he never really grew up watching NASCAR. When I talked to him, he also said that he wouldn't describe himself as a gearhead. I thought that was really funny, but he's still very passionate about the sport now, and it's something that he's really grown to love.
But there are going to be a lot of gearheads in the stands, people who are just die-hard NASCAR fans. They're going to want to know who's going to win the Bojangles Southern 500. We don't know that yet, but we do know who's going to start up front. It's going to be Kevin Harvick. He's starting up front by virtue of what happened with qualifying this week. It was washed out because of all the weather we had. So they're going by driver standings. That's why Harvick is in the front, and he's a guy who is dangerous no matter where he starts in the field. He has won here before a couple years ago, also a Cup champion that year. So Kevin Harvick, a very talented driver and a threat to win here at Darlington Raceway this week. Let's take a look at the rest of the lineup. Brad Keselowski right behind him. He was outstanding here last year, not quite able to get it done because Carl Edwards got it done, so Edwards is going to try to make it 2 straight here at the track Too Tough to Tame. Let's look at 6 through 10 now. Kyle Busch in that number 6 spot. He's a guy who won the Cup championship last year. Denny Hamlin at 7th. He has had a lot of success here in Darlington in the past, as has Jimmy Johnson and Matt Kenseth. So that's a look at how we're going to start. It'll start at 6 p.m. tonight. It's going to be a great race. We've had a lot of exciting races here in the past, and we'll see how things are going to go tonight. This is a look at some of the tickets that people are going to be using as they come into the raceway for the Bojangles Southern 500 tonight. One of the things that makes this race special is all the throwback paint schemes that we've already alluded to. They introduced these last year. We've got some special schemes for 2016. Let's take a look at these, beginning with Kevin Harvick, who we just talked about. He's going to drive a Busch throwback paint scheme. This is an old Cale Yarborough look. The Timsville native made it famous in 1979.
Next up, Jamie McMurray, the McDonald Chevy, rocking the Mac Tonight paint scheme. Bill Elliott fans, you remember this one. He used it in 1997. In
fact, we've got a lot of looks from the 90s this year. This is Trevor Bain's car, the Advocare paint scheme. Mark Martin used this in 96 and 97. Bain is honoring the Hall of Famer with this look.
Tony Stewart is running in his final Southern 500. He'll have a Coca-Cola paint scheme, same look that Bobby Allison used in the early 70s. More paint schemes are coming up later, but first, a look at other storylines.
Including Tony Stewart running here for the last time. We'll talk about what he has to do to get a win here finally when the Bojangles Southern 500 special continues.
Scrape and bake.
There's a lot of traditions here at Darlington Raceway. The Darlington Stripe is among them. We saw some guys get those in practice. Everyone's going to be trying to avoid that in the Bojangles Southern 500 coming up tonight. That'll be one of the major storylines, as it always is, but we've also got a big storyline with Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. out for the Southern 500 and out for the rest of the season. That's something that fans are probably really disappointed about, but hey, they've got someone great driving in his place. Jeff Gordon is going to run. It's his 5th time racing for Jr. tomorrow. He's got great history here, 7 wins all time at the track. No doubt he knows how to get around here.
You've got to be willing to really put yourself out there and take those risks and take those challenges, but know how to harness them and balance that out.
This is not loading. So Gordon should have a good chance this weekend, but his best finish this year is 11th. He'll try to improve that Sunday.
So this should be Gordon's last run at Darlington. It's the same story with Tony Stewart. 2016 is kind of a farewell tour for him. He's a 2-time Cup champion. He has won almost everywhere in the Cup Series. Not at Darlington, though. I caught up with his former crew chief, Greg Zipadelli, this week. He says it's going to take a combination of different things for Stewart to win here.
You need to package in a really good race car. You need a driver that's focused for the entire race. You have to race that racetrack. It's obviously a little bit different since they've repaved it. Every year it continues to age and gets closer and closer to what Darlington used to be.
Starts 17th in tomorrow's race.
A difficult racetrack, one of the more challenging tracks in the circuit for sure. 500 miles at Darlington's a really long time. Typically it's hot and slick, and you can never let your guard down or you make a mistake that'll take you out of the race. So it's just it's a mentally challenging race and a physically challenging race.
And that was Matt Kenseth talking about how difficult it is to win here at Darlington. He knows that well because he's one of the guys who's won here, and he is going to have that outstanding paint scheme, the Tide look, in today's race.
I love that paint scheme. And Kenseth has also been having a really good year, 10 top 10 finishes, so he'll try to build on that here today in Darlington. Kenseth earned his first victory at this track back in 2013, but he didn't have the best finish last weekend. That was back in Michigan. He finished 13th, so he'll try to bounce back. We asked him what it would take to win this week in Darlington.
I think you have to practice okay, but you got to race really good. The track usually changes a lot from practice to the race, and you got to not make any mistakes. You got to execute good. Last year we had real fast cars starting off, and I made a mistake and got into the wall, and it pretty much ruined our day. So you don't necessarily get a lot of second chances. So you got to stay sharp all day.
Kenseth will start in 10th place in tonight's race.
Carl Edwards, as he comes through 3 and 4, he'll see the checkered flag. He'll add his name to the legends that have won at Darlington. Carl Edwards wins the Southern 500.
Great moment for Carl Edwards last year in the Southern 500. You saw that he's starting third in this year's race. He's going to be aiming for a repeat. Edwards won this race last year.
It's crazy that my picture and name is on that trophy with all those guys. That's really an honor, and yeah, I'd love to do it again. I mean, this is just such a cool racetrack. I mean, we're sitting here, you can see the banking right out there. I mean, to think all the things that have happened here and, you know, how neat this racetrack is, yeah, we want to win.
Okay, more Southern 500 coverage coming up in a few minutes, but let's take a look at a few more paint schemes.
Yeah, we've got Jeffrey Earnhardt coming up. The look he's going to be using a classic paint scheme inspired by his grandfather, Dale Earnhardt Sr. He drove this similar paint scheme back in the 1980s.
To Eric Almirola now. He drives for an iconic team, and he'll use one of the sport's most iconic schemes, the number 43 STP Ford. Same look at the King Richard Petty used in 1979.
Speaking of icons, how's this for a combo? The Gray Ghost, made famous by Buddy Baker. Dale Jr. was supposed to drive it. Instead, it's going to be Jeff Gordon. That's three legends all involved in one paint scheme. Should be a lot of fun to watch on Sunday.
Brad Keselowski will take center stage in Darlington with his famous throwback paint scheme. This is a new look to the Miller Brewing Company's original Miller Lite logo from 1972.
All right, stay tuned. We've got much more coming up, including a look at some of the young guns who are going to try to get a win here at Darlington Raceway. That's next on the Bojangles Southern 500 Special.
The checkered flag and victory for the man who said he Coming out of number 4.
Okay, just a minute ago, we told you about some of the veterans, the legends that are going to be running in the Bojangles Southern 500 tonight. Now let's talk about some of the young guns, starting with Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson's got tons of momentum right now. He is coming off his first Sprint Cup Series victory of his career. That victory happened last weekend in Michigan. He'll try to make it 2 in a row at Darlington this weekend. He feels like having that momentum from Michigan should give him a boost heading into the Southern 500.
I think anytime you can win or run well, it helps the momentum out. So we just got to wait and see. I don't know. I feel confident going into Darlington, and hopefully that carries out through Richmond, and then to start the chase, we can have a good run.
Larson held off another young gun last week at Michigan. How about Chase Elliott? He was just dominating this race, but he struggled on a late restart. It would have been his first career win. Instead, the rookie is going to have to wait. Darlington could be the place where he finally gets a win. He won the Xfinity Series race here 2 years ago.
I'm not real sure how much of the success then will play a factor this weekend, other than, like I said, just having some extra laps of the racetrack and having a little bit of experience here maybe will help, hopefully.
I'll do that. Elliott's one of the drivers near the bubble for NASCAR's playoffs. He's going to have to be really smart with the way he drives, because he's going to need strong finishes here and next week at Richmond to clinch a spot.
The throwback paint schemes are fun to watch, but they can definitely pose a problem for some people involved, especially for spotters. Spotters are the people who watch the NASCAR cars drive around a track, and they'll have to know all the paint schemes in order to tell their driver which cars are around them. But with a lot of different looks in one race, that can be a tough adjustment. They're forced to forget the colors they were used to all season and memorize new ones, and Darlington's a tough enough track for them anyway.
This track's very difficult, real narrow. The turns 1 and 2 is much different than turns 3 and 4. So the spotters, they have their hands full just trying to stay out of the way more than anything.
But that's really just the reality of Darlington. It's too tough to tame for a lot of reasons for each and every race team. Okay, let's take a look at some more throwback paint schemes now. Austin Dillon is going to drive this car. This is from Ricky Rudd's Piedmont Airlines colors back in 1983.
Regan Smith will be driving this new paint scheme. Alan Kulwicki's 1992 Hooters Ford Thunderbird was the inspiration. Casey
Mears is going to pay tribute to two-time NASCAR Mechanic of the Year, Smokey Unick. Unick started from the pole in the 1967 Daytona 500.
Joe Gibbs Racing celebrates its 25th anniversary with this Dale Jarrett tribute. Kyle Busch will be driving this throwback paint scheme. In 1993, Jarrett drove the Interstate Batteries car to a win at the Daytona 500. It was the team's first win.
Okay, much more coming up in just a second. Darlington Raceway has a very unique shape, unlike any other track. There's a specific reason for that, and we'll tell you the story behind it coming up on the Bojangles Southern 500 preview.
Tonight, this race is old racetrack, man. I don't care how many coats of pavement or whatever they put on this thing. It ain't nothing but Darlington.
This is where they have to get a little aggressive.
When comparing Darlington Raceway to other tracks, this place really stands out for a whole bunch of different reasons, including the way it's shaped.
That's because it's an egg-shaped oval. That means it's different on both ends of the track. News 13's Taylor Hurlong found out why this track is so much harder than others for drivers.
Most tracks are cookie cutter.
It's been called too tough to tame.
One end's the same as the other, and this one isn't.
Its unique shape has brought challenges to drivers for years.
I guess still, we've never forgot Cale Yarborough going over that fence. You know, we rushing up to him, and then back then they didn't have the protection they had, and he's coming over the wall.
Challenges seen and possibly even credited to these guys, the Ramseys.
Well, I think it's part of history.
Behind the track, you can trade burning rubber and earplugs for something a little more simplistic.
It's a getaway for race drivers. A lot of times they come out here and fish just to get away from the hustle and bustle of the track, take their minds off of it.
Twin brothers John and Jim Ramsey on this piece of heaven now, but years ago it was their great-grandfather who wouldn't give up the land, forcing the racetrack to take on a new shape.
Originally, the road came around the corner of the track, and it was a public road. Anybody could use it. And so when the racetrack was being built, they'd have to move that road further on closer to the pond, which would encroach on our property. So that's why I asked that the track be turned a little more inward to protect the pond and still have access to the road.
It's a pretty historic piece of land when it comes to the track, but if you ask the Ramseys,
you take a look at this pond, what comes to mind for you?
Probably Ryan Newman catching 2 bass that were the largest ones I've ever seen caught out of here.
It's the memories made generation after generation after generation that's put a little NASCAR in their blood. In Darlington, Taylor Hurlong, News 13.
This is a great honor. There's no place like Darlington to me, and to have a garage area named after you from for now on is just great. This place, it will bite you. Everybody would love to have Darlington in their resume, I'll tell you that. So it's a tough place.
Cale Yarborough's name is well known in NASCAR and also here in Darlington.
Yeah, he's got 5 career wins here at his hometown track. He grew up in Timminsville, and now a part of this track is going to be named after him. Let's take a look at the special ceremony that they held for him this week. He was the honorary pace car driver for the 67th Sprint Cup Series Southern 500. Yarborough also won 4 Daytona 500 races, posted 83 career NASCAR Cup Series wins with 69 career awards. Driving the pace car wasn't the only honor he received in Darlington this weekend. He's also going to have the garage named after him. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got all kinds of good stuff to say about the things they've done for him here.
Darlington Raceway has always been my favorite racetrack in the world. And to have this honor is just great. It's something that I will always remember. And I still get goosebumps when I come around this place.
Isn't that amazing? A great honor for him and certainly well-deserved for a legendary driver. Okay, we're about to take a quick break and we'll be right back, but first,
let's take a look at more paint schemes. First, we have Ryan Blaney. He's celebrating the 40th anniversary of this throwback paint scheme. This is David Pearson's 1976 paint scheme.
Joey Logano is going to sport this throwback paint scheme. Longtime sponsor Shell Pennzoil celebrates the 20th anniversary of its first win with this throwback. This is a mirror to Bobby Labonte's winning paint scheme from 1996.
And we have one more for now. Michael McDowell and his team will honor Richard Childress by running these throwback colors. The scheme honors Richard Childress' 1973 Kansas Jack car.
All right, we've got much more coming up straight ahead on the Bojangles Southern 500 preview show, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, we can't let you go just yet. I mean, when it's a NASCAR special, we've got to make our race picks, right? Go ahead.
That's right. I'm going with Jeff Gordon. I know he hasn't done his best since coming out of retirement, but you can't argue with the history Gordon has had at this track, and it's a tough track, so I think someone with experience should do well here. I'm going with Jeff Gordon. Plus, wouldn't that be a great story? Filling in for Dale Earnhardt Jr., Gordon gets the win. I'm going with Jeff Gordon.
Gordon, no doubt about it, a sentimental favorite here. It would be an awesome story for him to win, but I think I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski, and part of the reason for that, not only the success that he has had throughout this season and over the past few years, but if you look back to last year's race, he was dominating this race, and things didn't work out for him in the end. I think he's going to come here with a whole lot of motivation, and he's going to get the win in the Southern 500.
All right, that'll do it for our NASCAR coverage here in Darlington.
Thanks so much for watching. As we leave here, take another look at the Bojangles Southern 500 Darlington Raceway Museum and all these great cars. A lot of these cars are cars that guys drove to victory lane during their career here at Darlington, including the one that's kind of closest to us here that we showed you earlier in the show that Richard Petty drove back in 1967. Who knows who's going to win tonight in the Southern 500, but perhaps their car will end up in the Darlington Raceway Museum. Thanks so much for watching. Tune in tonight at 11 for highlights of the Bojangles Southern 500. Have a good night.